What we see in Savannah is a lot of poverty and a lot of lack of access. It's almost like night and day, the stark have and the have-nots here. Everyone has to eat. Food isn't a privilege. In a place like this, food is a privilege, especially good, healthy, nutritious food. And to think that, the land, food, things that come naturally from the land, having to eat, the ability to eat, is only reserved a right or a privilege for a certain few is ludicrous. There's always going to be power. There's always going to be greed. There are always going to be people wanting more than they need. The farm truck wants to bridge that gap. There are very little things being done to help people gain access. The farm truck started in 2013 as a project of the Forsyth Farmers Market. The mission of the farmers market is to connect the farmers in the community and to create a sustainable food economy. As far as I know, it was started just like the farmers market by women who had this vision of providing access of fresh foods in a lot of neighborhoods in Savannah that don't have them. We have a very, very segregated place in Savannah, very segregated by class, by race. Opening that up, I think, is very important for the mission of the farmers market. So my name is Lena Banks and I am the Farm Truck 912 manager.
Lena is our farm truck manager, and she actually does the day-to-day operations for the farm truck. So she's going out and placing orders with all the farmers, and we specifically buy from 2 farmers. One of them is a young farmer, and young farmers are underrepresented in farming in America as a whole. And the other one is a Gullah Geechee farmer, and so it's a black farming family. And so she's building those relationships to support those underrepresented farmers. My name is Tasha Cunningham. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator for the Farmers Market, and my role is really just to expand the educational capacity of the Farmers Market, but specifically the farm truck.
Tasha is amazing. People are just drawn to and want to be around her, and she's a very bubbly, good way to get people involved in this. She does a lot of the outreach and working directly with the youth in those programs and teaching them some skills that she knows.
What I do is mostly try to organize events surrounding the truck and our stops that kind of facilitate more meaningful conversations around food and inspiring folks to have a healthier relationship with their food. And so one of the programs we have is with high schoolers with the Deep Center here in Savannah, and they work mostly with high school youth. So I find that our programs are really expanding the conversations beyond food access. We're talking about so much more than food access, and I've had young folks come up to me and tell me that it's really meaningful for them because they don't have the space to have these conversations anywhere else. It's about building community around the truck, and that's very intentional with the farm truck as we try to make sure that we're facilitating a conversation around food and we're not just preaching about food. We're also encouraging this larger conversation and making sure we hold space for individuals to share with us also what they know. People come in with these forces of we're going to change and we're going to empower and we're going to do this and all that, and no. I think at best we want to be a resource, an educational, community, organizational resource. The power is in these communities. If only they had the same access as some of their more fortunate counterparts, what could they be? How many doctors and lawyers and great thinkers fall through the cracks because nobody gave a shit? There's a certain peace of mind, a little bit of hope that comes with knowing that other people care for you and your well-being. And I think a lot of these communities don't feel that way often, especially the marginalized communities. I see kids come to the truck, and sometimes that's just a safe, cool place for them to be. Just for 2 hours, they don't have to, be standing in line or expected to do anything. They can chill. I'll give them fruit and we'll talk, and I'll just ask them about school. And being a part of that community, I think, is what I see brightens someone's day. These children don't have to, be running out in the streets if they don't want to. They have a safe place to be understood.
women of color, it's about time. You know what I mean? It's about time. We're in a very special time, I guess, where we do have the access to do this. We can be in charge of stuff. My grandmother would never be able to be like a manager or educate, these have been male-dominated fields. And I think it's important too, especially in the communities we work in, is to see people who look like us. The kids can identify. I'm much more likely to listen to someone who I feel like has maybe experienced what I've experienced or knows what I may be going through. I mean, unsurprisingly, there's a lot of distrust in some of these lower income communities, because why would they have any reason to trust anyone coming in with some program or any, entity?
It was very intentional for the farmers market to hire 2 women of color for this specific role, because we're dealing with really sensitive information when we're talking about food access. Food access also has to do with poverty, it has to do with housing, it has to do with education. And these are issues that are really sensitive, and I think you have to have a sense of cultural competency. You have to be aware of what's going on in these communities and the structure of these communities to really be able to speak to people in a way that's empathetic and they don't feel like you're preaching to them. I think it's important that we build trust with the individuals that we're working with. And a lot of these are people of color. And so for them, it's a little bit more, it's easier for them to engage with us if we're someone that just looks like them. So there are still things that I have, there are my own privileges that I have that makes it difficult to connect with them. Not because I'm a woman of color means that I can just automatically go into this environment and they'll just embrace me, right? I have things that I have to work on also. But it's just one way to disarm them and have a conversation where they feel it's a safe space to have women of color be a part of this conversation.
And I always like to think of the farm truck as like the magic school bus when they go into the body in the episode, and like it's our vehicle into the community, it's our vehicle of access. We're also one of the only farmers markets one of the few that do the SNAP double program, where if, with EBT food stamps, if you spend $1 in food stamps, you get $2 on the truck. So that's offering, a cash incentive to people, lower income people who are on government assistance to get good food on that.
One of the things that I see with working with a farm truck is even though we're specifically addressing food access, we're also addressing some of those other issues that intersect food access. And so our hope is that we can facilitate these larger conversations that talk about an unfair distribution of wealth and education and land and other resources. So the farm truck is always looking for volunteers. I could use support in the programs that I run. I have to come up with lesson plans, recipes, handouts, packing my car with all the materials. So it would be helpful to have volunteers to help us in the office with just our day-to-day operations. We also have interns that serve with us for some time through AmeriCorps Vista. I know the farm truck could use individuals just on the farm truck to help bag groceries, help bring people out, but it would also be helpful to have folks come and volunteer with us to help me kind of run the programs that we're running. We could always use on-the-ground support that way. I think it's also important too, though, just to be involved in your community. I think sometimes it's overwhelming when you're thinking of what you can do. And so it doesn't have to necessarily be food, because again, food intersects so many other things. So whatever it is that someone is passionate about, I think just find a way to get involved locally and eventually you'll have a larger impact.